In the 1960s, the husband and wife team of Gerry and Sylvia Anderson had become internationally famous for their puppet series for children, culminating in the global smash hit Thunderbirds. But by the end of the 1960s, Gerry and Sylvia were keen to leave the puppets behind and begin work in live-action drama. Near the end of the 1960s, they, along with their financial supporter Lord Lou Grade, struck a deal with Universal Pictures to produce 5 major motion pictures. The movies they intended to produce would feature the same extravagant special effects by Derek Meddings, as well as the music of the maestro Barry Gray. Sadly, only one of the 5 films in the deal was to be produced. Originally titled Doppelganger, the film had its name changed for international distribution to Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. The background to the film begins with Sylvia Anderson. According to Sylvia Anderson, the script was originally written as a television drama, but one day she simply pulled it out of the drawer and decided to read it, and she came to the conclusion that it was too good for television, and she decided she wanted to develop it as a feature film. The final version of the screenplay would be credited to Gerry and Sylvia Anderson and Donald James. Donald James was a writer who had contributed widely to such ITC series as The Champions. He would go on to write the classic UFO episode Kill Straker, as well as episodes of the second season of Space 1999. In the late 1980s, Gerry and Sylvia Anderson's head writer Tony Barwick gave his final interview, and in that interview he stated that he did some work on the drafts of the script for the film. Although he is uncredited, when asked about why the film did not succeed at the American box office, Barwick speculated that perhaps the idea behind the film was the wrong way to go. Perhaps if the premise is to discover a new planet behind the sun, they should have gone another way. He suggested that maybe the planet should be strange and exciting, with different mountains and different geography compared to Earth. Maybe it's a place for adventure and excitement. Perhaps the idea they went with was not the right one. So what was the idea behind Journey to the Far Side of the Sun? Well, the plot was very reminiscent of a Twilight Zone episode called The Parallel. In the story, astronauts sent from Earth investigate a planet directly on the opposite side of the Sun from Earth. But when they get there, it appears that they have arrived back home. Eventually they realize that something is wrong. The planet they have reached is not Earth, but a mirror Earth, a parallel Earth. Everyone they know is reproduced there exactly, with one startling difference. Everything is a mirror image of what it was back home. Once the Andersons and Donald James had done their magic, the filmed story ended up incorporating lots of other elements such as Cold War espionage, with a spy trying to learn the secret of the new planet, a sun probe which discovers the existence of the new planet, an impressive rocket launch sequence, a lengthy suspended animation sequence, which allows for some surrealism and some dreamy music from Barry Gray, an exciting crash landing sequence in which Derek Meddings' special effects reach their usual explosive highs, and a grand finale featuring spaceships exploding and crashing in flames, giving the film a semi-apocalyptic climax. And Journey to the Far Side of the Sun can then be said to have plenty to recommend it to any fan of Gerry and Sylvia Anderson's work. It has the requisite number of spectacular special effects and explosions to make it well worth a watch, and Barry Gray, as always, delivers a magnificent musical score. But what about the deeper stuff? The story, the themes and the characters? Well, the casting for the film was interesting. Roy Thinnis was world famous at the time for the lead role in the TV series The Invaders. And this is quite significant because The Invaders was about alien infiltration, and the Andersons would go on to produce a series with a very similar theme and many similar plot lines in the form of UFO, straight after making this film. The cast is even more interesting because a great number of the actors in Journey to the Far Side of the Sun would appear on UFO, including the two main characters, Ed Bishop, who played Commander Straker, and George Sewell, who played Colonel Alec Freeman. Roy Thinnis was married to actress Lynn Loring, who ended up being cast as his wife in the film. Sylvia Anderson apparently found it difficult to work with a husband and wife acting team, and despite her misgivings about this, ended up working with another husband and wife acting team in the form of Martin Landau and Barbara Bain when she produced the first season of Space 1999 a few years later. Co-starring alongside Roy Thinnis is actor Ian Hendry, who first became well known in Britain for the TV series Police Surgeon. Police Surgeon was changed by Sidney Newman into The Avengers after Newman realised that Hendry had a background as a paratrooper and a commando and wanted to capitalise on his physical skills and abilities. Hendry became a star and left The Avengers in the capable hands of his co-star Patrick Macnee, and his character was replaced by Honor Blackman and later Diana Rigg. Sidney Newman, of course, went on to create a little show called Doctor Who, for which he is remembered to this day. Ian Hendry's character in the film dies about midway through the film, and this is possibly one of the bad points of the film. It might have been more involving had he survived to discuss the strange predicament that he and Glenn Ross find themselves in on the Mirror Earth. Despite everything which went on, the end result of the film is quite good. Hollywood veteran Robert Parrish directed the film. Parrish was brought on board because Hollywood wanted an established director attached to the project. Although some critics gave credit to Robert Parrish for making the somewhat illogical plot of the film seem plausible and effective, Gerry Anderson claimed that Parrish was quite difficult to work with, and sometimes Anderson found that he couldn't get what he wanted. For example, Gerry Anderson wanted it to be depicted clearly in the film that when a spaceship travels through space, it travels as straight as a die. But Parrish wanted to use handheld cameras to create a kinetic effect, as if the ship was shaking violently as it powered through space. Such creative differences were perhaps why the Andersons ended up saying that they found it difficult to get what they wanted from him. Nevertheless, the end result is a sleek and stylish film. The opening sequence has a bizarre and unnerving moment when Dr. Hassler photographs documentation about the existence of the new planet with a camera hidden in his false eye, and then pulls his eye from his head. It's the kind of squeamish horror moment which perhaps foreshadows the aliens with their plastic shells over their eyes in UFO. The story of the film has been compared to the film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, because ultimately it's a story being told by a man in a mental institution, which makes the whole film ambiguous. Did any of it really happen? Did they really discover the existence of another world that was a parallel to our own? Or is it all just the ramblings of a crazy old man in a wheelchair, in a mental institution? He's in a place where he's being nursed and looked after at the end of the film, and the film ends on a very ambiguous note. And this brings us to perhaps the one real issue with the film. Although Roy Thinnis is the protagonist, the main storyline, the main plot, is actually being told by Jason, the man behind the project. He is the one who ends up the rambling old man telling the story. Whereas the hero of the film, Glenn Ross, dies. This gives the whole film a certain murkiness. Also, looking at the poster for the film and the trailer, it's possible that the failure of the film at the box office was more to do with poor promotion and poor work by the film's distributors when it came to selling the film in the United States. The film has enough to recommend it to have been at least moderately successful, and it's somewhat sad that things didn't work out better. However, it's still a diverting film with some fascinating ideas and notions, and much to enjoy and think about. And out of this film came UFO, a series which would reuse some of the same concepts and ideas, only this time the main character would be very clearly Commander Straker, played by Ed Bishop. On a final note, Derek Meddings was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Special Effects, something he would go on to win a little later on in his career when he worked on Superman the movie.